Okay, that's better. Um, Anyways, yeah, I think we're basically ready to go. Um, anyways, so yeah, so this is, um, I'll maybe just, because I'm sure there's going to be a few more people that are going to maybe jump on. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'll just sort of give some backstory to how things happened the way they did and where I was coming from and I don't know, everything. So I left Las Vegas April 1st and got back on the road and headed to Hoover Dam. And then the plan was to go along Lake Mead recreational area, um, and then make my way to St. George, Utah, where I am currently. And anyways, while I was in Las Vegas during March and February, March, the temperatures were, mid 70s, so they're quite nice, quite reasonable. And then on my way to the Hoover Dam, like when I left April 1st, like they just all of a sudden the temperature skyrocketed to from 70 to 90s, and for some reason, as much as I enjoy the heat just it knocked me just sideways. It was like hitting a brick wall, and I basically ended up losing all my appetite and um, but being forced to kind of bike 50 kilometers a day through the desert, and so I was only eating one meal a day, not sleeping very well. I was probably going to say April 2nd to April 6th was probably the hardest days of my entire ride, including biking through the Canadian winter 2019-2020. And so, anyways, and there is actually a YouTube road show that Brandon and me did the morning of all this fire happened and everything. So, but I decided not to share that until after I did the live because I didn't want too much information to confuse people or whatever. Um, anyways, so I had an extremely rough week with almost no food, biking through 90 degrees. Um, it was very, very weak, actually. Not that that really had anything to do with what exactly happened, but it just while people start tuning in, I just thought I would give some behind the scenes of just what the week had been like prior to everything. And what I'm just going to do very quickly is, before I forget, is I'm just going to just plug in my phone so that all of a sudden my battery doesn't die unexpectedly. Um, so, anyways, and we are the 8th. So you're going to have to bear with me also because I have had very, very, very little sleep since April 2nd. And so, yeah. Anyways, I see more and more people are coming on. So, first and foremost, just a huge and special thank you to everyone that reached out and commented and for prayers. Yeah, as I continue on, you'll see that like the power of prayer like really saved my butt. So thank you for the comments, the prayers. I apologize that I wasn't able to get more current with what was going on. Much the area that I was in was very, very, very slow internet speed. I could open certain apps, like I could do Messenger pretty good, but if I went to Facebook, like nothing would open. Like when you click on comments, the windows wouldn't open. So I was without internet speed for quite some time. So that was largely had to do with the delay of just kind of keeping people updated. Um, so anyway, so basically what happened is, and now I have to think because like I said, I've had not a lot of sleep in the last week and very, very little food in the last week. And we are Thursday, I believe, right? I'm just going to go to my computer just for reference. Yeah, we're Thursday. So I got St. George Wednesdays. Does this make sense? St. George Friday, this Wednesday. Okay, so this fire would have happened, I guess, Tuesday morning. So basically what happened is I done so this would have been Tuesday morning. I did a road show with Brandon for the YouTube channel, like I was sort of mentioned, and I was very, very weak. And so basically, I was attempting to make breakfast some chicken noodle soup because that was about the only thing I could actually kind of eat generally in the morning. Like when I was, like I said, I lost my appetite. I would have to like drink water with every sip of food for breakfast. Usually go without supper kind of deal. Um, Anyways, I just done a road show with Brandon. Uh, I kind of dragged myself out of my tent, and basically I was in the process of making breakfast with. I have a Dragonfly Whisper MSR Dragonfly stove. Those that would be familiar know that just to get that stove started, it's quite common that a little bit of fuel just kind of sprays a little bit. And I mean, obviously, I've been using that stove hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over the last year and a half, and even before that kind of deal. So this wasn't unusual. Anyways, I was preparing my meal. I went to light my stove, and just instantly, just poof, the whole area around my stove just lit up. Of course, I jumped back very quickly and started very quickly stamping things out, but it was just so, I mean, I was right there, and it happened so quickly that I couldn't do anything to even stop it. Literally, what happened is flames would go in a direction, uh, 2 or 3 feet within a matter of like a fraction of a second. And if you can imagine the analogy of pouring a glass of water on a coffee table, how it's not like the water just goes into a stream. The water, it it flows outward, and so basically the flames just went like that. And so 2 feet was a huge, and so I'm frantically stamping my feet, like the flames, and then but it's flowing out in another direction, and then it goes beside my tent, and I race there and I pull my tent um, back, and then stamp that bit of fire, and then I look to my left, and the flames are, and I race over there, and I'm stamping, trying, and I look up like it's happening so quickly, and keep in mind, like I said, I haven't eaten in 6 days, more or less, and I'm just completely drained and weak from no food. But I've pedaled, actually I'm not sure, I've probably pedaled, I'm going to say maybe 150 miles over the last 4 or 5 days in 90-degree weather. So I'm instantly, like, I'm very, very weak. I mean, you can probably even see it in my voice, and I'm just, and so I'm stamped, and then I look, and then there's literally, my tent is literally in flames. And it's like I had just moved my, you know what I mean? And so I raced to my tent, and I try to pull that away because a lot of my gear's in my tent, and stamp all that out. And then in the time I've stamped that out, the fire to the other side is now 15 to 20 feet away, and now it's actually caught. There's a ditch where there's like all sorts of vegetation, and the flame. It just. I'm just like beside myself. Like, what do you do in that moment? And and so I race over there, and I'm just like, but then of course, like, even while the flames go over there, they've also spread across, they're starting to spread across this field, and I am stamping, and I'm kicking, and with like my boots, I'm kicking dirt and sand, and and the one thing, like, there were certain areas where the flames got pretty high, but for the most part, in one sense, I don't know if it's lucky because what happened, but the grass it was just thin grass, and so the flames generally weren't too high, but because it was very thin grass, it just, and so, like I said, no strength, no energy. I'm just, and then, before you know it, I am like 200, 300 feet from my tent, where this all happened. And like I said, this one ditch area, like, just the whole thing is just, and that's the thing, is the flames are just moving. It's like they just keep moving and moving. and the wind wouldn't change, and there's everything's spreading, and I'm just, and so I, then I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, I actually have to call 911. There is no way around this. It just spread. And so, like, that, so I call 911, and, I'm thinking, like, I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm done for. And then, strangely, and it was interesting, probably one of the most surreal situations was that I was camped behind this water company. There was a massive water tank and some kind of water company. I was camped behind there, and someone from the company actually pulled up in his pickup truck because I was, like, sort of off of a gravel road, and obviously the flames were, or the fire had spread, like, say 2-3 acres kind of deal at least. And the guy gets out of his truck and he just sort of looks at me like, so we got a bit of a fire here. It was almost like his attitude was like, oh yeah, we do this, 4 times a day, putting these fires out. Anyways, he goes, I've got some shovels and a rake, I'll, I'll go fight. And I said, well, let me come with you, kind of deal. And so we drive out, because like I said, everything is continue to push. And his name was Seth. And anyways, we drive out and we go to where, like I said, where the fire had gone along this ditch where there's more vegetation growing. Basically, what happened is it now followed a fence, and, like, thank goodness this fence was made out of T-bar and barbed wire, like, it was not wooden, because basically because obviously fence lines tend to attract more vegetation, and so this massive fire was now following this fence line. And anyway, so we drive up, we get out of the truck, we're fighting while he's doing more of the fighting, because like I said, I mean, I've been doing this now for, I want to think, like 45 minutes now, so I already had no energy, and I've just been fighting a fire for 45 minutes, so I am just exhausted. And anyways, it seems like he's got it under control at his end, and I say, well, I yell, I'm gonna go back and just check this, that area, this other area, and I turn and I go towards his truck, and I see that his truck is parked on grass that has not burned yet. For whatever reason, there was a space, but what had happened is the wind had come around, and all of a sudden I see the flames literally coming towards his truck. And I yell, and I'm like, oh, I'm just, like, frozen. It's like, I just blew, I'm thinking, I'm going to blow this guy's truck up. And I yell, and I race to the truck, but by the time I race to the truck, the flames have raced towards me. And as quickly as they came to the truck, the flames just went right under the truck. Like I said, because it was thin grass, the flames weren't high, but just when you're watching flames come right under a truck in the desert, in the heat, and how, because obviously, when all this happened, the first thing I'm thinking about is all these forest fires in California, and now, and they start usually by cars, and now these flames are coming under this truck. But anyways, the flames just went right under the truck, and, no issue with the truck. In the meantime, someone else showed up from the other side of the fence. I looked like he was a worker kind of deal in the farming area. He's like, you got an extra shovel or something that I can help? And I tossed him my rake because I was, kind of useless at that point, compared to someone who was fresh and I could still kick dirt on with my feet or whatever. I actually never even saw that guy again, because at one area near the fence, it was, I don't know if there was like a tire there or something. It just never stopped. It never stopped burning, and he fought that fire. And so I just, anyways, and then all of a sudden, finally, after 20 minutes, the fire department showed up, a pickup truck with 2 guys. And, now there was only one main area of fire that was, it was 1,000, 2,000 feet or whatever, like at the far, far end. And they went to go fight that, and that other guy, Seth, he never stopped fighting. And so, anyways, I just sat there watching it because, yeah, there wasn't much, the fire department was there now, and I'm just watching all this thinking, okay, this is it. Like, it's done. Like, my ride is done. I don't know how much trouble I'm in. I don't know if I don't, well, not that I thought I would be getting arrested, but, you know, I mean, this is obviously extremely serious. Not much, in my situation, it doesn't, I mean, yeah. So I'm thinking, yeah, the ride is done. You know, uh, it was apparent when the fire department showed up that the fire would be put out, which, I mean, thank goodness for that. But, there's two guys there and with a truck. And then it was funny, like 15 minutes later, literally, it was like 50 minutes after I called 911, another truck shows up, a bigger one, not like a regular standard fire truck that would show up at a house, but, well, one of those, I don't know, whatever, just not obviously without ladders, showed up. And now it's like, yeah, it was after the fire was put out, and I'm thinking, okay, like, the least that's going to happen is they're going to come up to me and say, here's $100,000 ticket for what you just did. I'm thinking that's at least that's going to happen, which obviously I'm finished, I'm done, the ride is over, because you don't send two trucks. This is America also, you know what I mean? Like, of course I'm being charged for this. Of course I'm in huge trouble. So I'm thinking that everything is done, and I'm just sitting there watching. And anyways, eventually one of the firefighters he's walking the perimeter. I ask him, like, how much trouble am I actually in? He's like, I don't know. The fire department does its job, the sheriff department does their job. And so, anyways, eventually both trucks came to the campsite where I was camped. There was 3 guys in total. And so I'm like, okay guys, like, what's the bad news? Like, how much trouble am I in? And they said, well, like, we do our job, the sheriff does their job. And anyways, it was weird. The guy that was sort of in charge, he called his supervisor, I guess, got on the phone with him. And then all of a sudden he turned to me and he says, we're not going to pursue this. My boss just said, just have a talk with the guy. Make sure he doesn't do this again. But yeah, he says, yeah, we're not going to pursue this. And I'm just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, I thought, like, there's 2 trucks and 3 guys. If that doesn't cost $100,000 in America, I don't know what does. And they just, it was just, yeah. The thing they said, though, is that the sheriff is going to be by, and I mean, that's their department, so we don't know, like, you'll have to talk with him. But on our end, we're not pursuing it. We're good. Just don't let it happen again, kind of deal. And so obviously I thanked them profusely. And actually, sorry, I did miss a small section of the story. The local guy at the water company that helped me, Seth, when the fire department showed, got it all under control, he obviously left in his truck and went back to the company, the building behind me, just drove past. He didn't sing. And so I followed him to like, dude, you saved my life. I mean, this guy was a rock star. He was a rock star. He's saved my life, like, in so many ways. Like, he had 90% of the fire contained, just this one guy. And so I walked into the compound, as he's getting out of his truck, and he just sort of, he had this attitude like, like, oh, we do this 4 times a day. Like, hey, this was, he just like shook my hand, and like, he's like, anyways, have a great trip, good luck, kind of deal, as if like, like this. Yeah, it was like he does this 4 times a day, kind of deal. So anyways, so obviously I thanked him profusely, but he's like this. It was like I don't know. It was like it was nothing of nothing to him that what he just did. Um, and so, anyways, back to the fire department, like I said, they're basically, we're not going to pursue this. They never took my name. They never took my number. They took no information whatsoever. They never even, like, they took no information whatsoever. Um, they just said, like I said, the sheriff will be by, wait for him kind of deal. So anyway, basically what happened is so I had to clean up my stuff. I'll mention what basically more or less I lost in the fire in a moment, but basically um, I cleaned up everything that had burned and separated and repacked what I had. Um, and anyways, so I went by the road to wait for the sheriff. Now, basically, what I was told is the sheriff is coming from Capital City because the fire itself actually happened in Arizona, even though I was right beside Nevada. It happened in Arizona, and so the sheriff that was supposed to come supposed to come from Capital City, which was, I guess, an hour away. But now, like, so, but obviously, like, I mean, I think I fought the fire for an hour and a half. Like, I don't like, I fought the fire for an hour and a half. I think, I don't know. I like times, obviously. Anyways, I sat on the side of the road for hours. I had basically almost no water. Um, obviously, and I hadn't eaten, of course. Um, I waited 4.5 hours after the 911 call, and it was now after 4 p.m. I had basically no water. I've been sitting in the desert for now all day. Um, I have no shelter because, like, well, I'll go into it later. But my tent, my sleeping bag, everything was burned up, and so I have no shelter, no water. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've waited over 4.5 hours since the 911 call. So I left. I'm not, obviously not that hard to catch on a bicycle if someone shows up, but I left, and because there's a truck stop 10 miles away, and anyways, I biked to the truck stop. I actually got two flat tires on my trailer. One was a repeat. I hadn't found the cause of the first flat, but I had two flat tires on my trailer. And I actually met a fellow traveler. There was a backpacker. He was walking from St. Louis, Missouri to San Francisco, and he's planning to go to Delaware. Anyways, we had a chat for about 20-30 minutes. Basically, I got to the truck stop, like I said, 10 miles away. I got something cold to drink, of course. I had my first meal of the day. Basically, by the time I was done eating, it was dark. So it's dark. I'm at a truck stop. I have no tent. I have no sleeping bag. I have no shelter whatsoever. I didn't want to bike to St. George because that elevation I anticipated, without any shelter, depending on my situation, it would be cooler in St. George than where I was in Arizona. Um, so basically, about 1,000 feet from the truck stop, I found another field, I guess, but it seemed like it was an area where the works department throws their brush and dirt or whatever. And um, my sleeping pad, actually, only about 20% of it burned, and thankfully I decided at the fire, I just cut the burned part off and kept, because I didn't know where I was sleeping 2 nights ago. And so I thought, you know what, I better carry this with me because I have no idea what is in store over the next night or two. And so basically I slept on my pad on the dirt beside my bike in this field. I had a hoodie and stuff and another cover jacket or whatever. Um, I realized that I still had my tarp, but it's very, very, very thin tarp, and I covered myself in the tarp, which I don't actually think even helped at all. And basically, I had a fairly sleepless night shivering in the cold um, all night basically. So 2 nights ago I basically just shivered in the cold, 1,000 feet from this truck stop. Eventually I pulled the tarp over my head. I looked up and saw that the stars were gone, which meant daylight was soon approaching. The sun came up, it warmed me. Um, I didn't really have anything to pack because I was just sleeping on the ground. I went to the truck stop, I bought some water. I had no appetite to eat anything, and so basically I biked 50 kilometers up into Utah, into St. George, arriving yesterday afternoon. Um, yeah, so I biked 50 kilometers, with nothing to eat. So, yeah, I arrived in St. George yesterday, completely fried, completely burned. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, because I mean, I sometimes, when I make breakfast, I actually don't wear a shirt just to get a little bit of, because obviously, like, well, just to get a little bit of sun on my back or whatever, as much as I try to avoid the sun, but in the morning because it's a little bit cooler. And so I fought the whole fire without a shirt on. And last night when I had my shower, I discovered my back, my front, I'm completely burned red. And that was the thing, is I had a hard time sleeping on the ground because my back and my shoulders are sunburnt every time I turned. But I discovered last night when I had my very first shower, I was basically in the same clothes, um, no shower since April 1st. And so when I finally looked myself in the mirror last night, I'm completely red down to my waist. Um, Anyways, basically what happened is yeah, I got to St. George. I went to McDonald's, had something to eat, and then it's just like trying to process everything. Like, I mean, a day earlier, I thought my life was practically over in the sense of this bike ride, as far as my future. And here I am in St. George. Um, but so yeah, so I mean, yeah. Anyways, I'm just gonna take a quick break from my story because I see obviously more people have come on, and because when I first started there was only a few people. Just a huge thank you to anyone who's tuned in, that sent comments and well wishes and prayers. I can't thank you enough. And due to slow internet speed, I apologize, and just being mentally fatigued. This is the first chance that I've really had to actually, kind of explain what went on. So thank you for your prayers and well wishes and your comments. And sorry it took a few days um, to get, to keep everyone updated. Um, so anyways, I was hoping so I got into St. George yesterday, and I was hoping there was a small possibility that I might have found a host, but I wasn't sure. I had messaged and I was waiting for a response before I attempted to check into a hotel or something, because obviously I couldn't sleep without, just on my sleeping pad like that. It would I would have froze last night. And so I was just hoping, waiting for a response. Nothing came, and so finally I checked into a hotel where I am right now. Um, and yeah, and so I got in here, and it was actually a bit of a hassle, but I finally got a hotel, finally got checked in. Um, and then, it's just, wow. It's like, where do I even start to figure out? First thing I did is I made a few messages on Facebook about like some bike groups, if there was anyone living in St. George that could potentially host me. Good news is that I have a host. That actually all came through. So from here, I actually leave from the hotel, in an hour or so. I'm actually on my way to a host. I can't thank Matt and Stephanie more and it was um, through another follower in Salt Lake City. So I do have a host, and I'm so thankful for. Um, and so just to get me back on my feet. But even like that, having all that lifted, like basically I got no sleep last night. Like I really haven't slept much since April 1st. I've basically averaged one meal a day since April 1st. I had my first shower last night. I was basically in the same clothes, except other than like generally I sleep in different clothes, but as far as the day to day, I've been in the same clothes since April 1st. I just made a couple notes because I knew there's a lot of things to just cover. Just wanted to make sure. And then also, like I said, there is a YouTube road show of just, it's not the events leading up to the fire, it's just the events of the bike ride that kind of explains in more detail why I was just so weak and just so spaced out and everything. And I'll publish, it's on YouTube, but I'll share that shortly. Um, anyways, yeah, so as far as like the gear I lost, my tent was destroyed. My sleeping bag was destroyed. I actually use an insert for cooler nights. That was destroyed. My one front pannier completely was burned. So basically, like when you buy, like for those that are not like people, my front bags, one of my front bags, my pannier burned up to nothing. Like the whole thing burned, gone. And when you buy your bike bags, you buy them in a set of two. So I have to replace a set of front panniers. Um, what was largely in that one pannier was mostly my spare bike parts and tools. Mostly, that was mainly what it was, plus a few other things, some extra bike gloves. Um, my boots got fairly chewed up, melted from the fire. Yeah, most of my leg hairs were singed. Even lost some hair on my arm. That all grows back, of course. But yeah, that was the bulk of the gear. And that being said, just a quick and special thank you to Sophie out of Nova Scotia. She just very quickly, after the fact, like sent a small donation. Uh, Nova Scotia always steps up so quickly. Just for anyone who's watching from Nova Scotia, I brag about you guys all the time when I'm in America, because obviously a lot of Americans are not so familiar with Canadian geography, and so when I'm in America, I brag about Nova Scotia all day long. So a very quick thank you to Sophie for quickly sending a donation, a small donation. And also, and actually, I got a very, very generous donation from Andrew out of Vancouver. Very generous, very quickly the same day. So I would like to thank those two people for their generosity. Um, I have had people obviously message, is there a way to help? How can we help? Um, I am a little bit uncomfortable asking for financial help. The reality is there are always way more people in the world that need financial help, far, far, far more than I will ever need financial help. But um, you know, there are a lot of people obviously invested in the ride, and so if you go to my website, safariarie.ca, A-R-I-E, so safariarie.ca, there is a PayPal link. It's probably the easiest, quickest, um, or even email transfer. My email address is arie, at safariarie.ca. So, email transfer. I'm going to ballpark, especially like with the tent and everything and the panniers, I'm going to ballpark with, and also dealing with US exchange as a Canadian, I'm going to ballpark that if I actually added everything up, I'm going to say probably at least $2,000 went up in flames, worth the gear. Uh, Considering I thought for sure I was going to be handed $100,000 fine minimum, and it just went to, from 100,000 to 2,000. I cannot believe how blessed I actually am, given everything. Oh, sorry, repeat the web page. Safari Arie, so Safari, Safari, and the name Arie. If you just Google Safari Arie, everything comes up very quickly, but it's safariarie.ca, and it's not hard. There is actually a support link because, I mean, as you guys are aware, I spend a tremendous amount of time just always documenting and updating and blogging and photos and being engaged, and that obviously takes that a lot of time, and even on the road, time is actually money. So it's like, in one sense, it's like you, uh, by supporting me, in one sense, it validates the content that I put out there, and I do know that from your messages, many people appreciate it. So there is actually a support link, but I think throughout the page, you will find PayPal links. So, like I said, that's generally the easiest way. Um, I'm trying to think if I think I've kind of covered everything. I know that obviously there's been a lot of messages scrolling, um, and I haven't really had a chance to read. I just caught that one, but um, if I start reading them, I'm going to get very distracted and start rambling and lose my place. So, um, yeah, so I will actually go through obviously all those comments for sure. Um, I think for the most part, I have covered everything. Um, I am very mentally fatigued over the last entire week. I have a host. Um, I fully anticipate getting myself rested up. Basically, from St. George, I will make my way through the national parks towards Moab, which is kind of the northeast uh, area of Utah, and then to make my way down to Grand Canyon. Um, I don't know exactly how many days I will be in St. George. I don't want to overstay my welcome, of course, but so much has gone on. Anything else? Just I am one of the luckiest people, literally, and so I mean, not to sound like whatever, but thank you for your prayers. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that laugh at prayers and they don't believe in the power of prayer or the power of God, but I should be in a completely, I mean, if there had been more vegetation, had there been trees, a lot of times they camp behind trees. Right now, there could be 1 million acres of whatever burning right now, and it was maybe 4 or 5 acres. You know, I could be in so much legal trouble right now, you know, and here I am going to be able to continue my ride. And it's just like I need even to process that I'm that lucky that at the end of the day only $2,000 in lost gear. Like, so yeah, I, what else can I really say? Just other than thank you, thank you, thank you for everyone's support. It is so much appreciated. And and like I said, just apologize for the last few days of just not being able to update, just because, like I said, I was in such slow internet speed coming up into St. George, and then just not just knowing which way to even turn as far as, okay, what do I do in this moment, and just sort of just sitting there and just staring into space. So anyways, I think I'm basically now about to start rambling. Undoubtedly, um, I'll probably connect with my YouTube guy Brandon um, in the next day or two, and we'll probably have an extended powwow. It'll probably be a lot of this repeated, but you'll probably have a few more questions. Some other people, like when I read the comments, some people might have asked some pertinent questions that then I could maybe address that kind of deal. But I think, for all intent purposes, I think I'll probably just sign off here. and just feeling grateful, thankful, and blessed. And thank you for all your support and your comments. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. Thanks.